My name is James Carl Aurelia, a second-year BS Criminology of Davao Central College. So this is my podcast about the topic Law Enforcement Code of Ethics. As a law enforcement officer, my fundamental duty is to serve mankind. Too often we forget that enforcement is not just a job for which we are hired as one would hire a laborer. It involves a sworn duty. Service involves dedication and sacrifice of the giving of oneself. These are words that many find hard to swallow in his present day and age, but the job of professional law enforcement requires a special breed of man. To safeguard lives and priority, to protect the innocent against deception, the weak against oppression or intimidation, and the peaceful against violence or disorder. We must, however, understand some of the limitations that are present in truly democratic society. In such a society as ours, this task can be a difficult one because protecting the rights of the criminal, this is sometimes a hard pill for law enforcement officer to swallow. It is for an officer to become bitter when he was continually witness the ends of justice thwarted by red tape politics and technicalities of the law. The more truly idealistic he is, the more frustrated he can become, especially if he lacks a philosophy or understanding of his true purpose in society which he serves. To respect the constitutional rights of all men to liberty, equality, and justice. Respecting the rights of others is not one of man's natural qualities. It seems to be part of his nature of suspect and prosecute justice on his earth. Now will there ever be, because man is not all-knowing nor is himself perfect. Still, we must strive for a form of justice that represents our ultimate capability. This involves not only great on the part of every person in the community but individual sacrifice as well. I will keep my private life unsullied as an example to all. One of the first things that a law enforcement officer must learn is that he has no private life. Every citizen should be entitled to his own private life, yet when a person accepts the calling of law enforcement as a voluntary measure, he must be willing to obtain his privacy as a sacrifice to the good of the community which he serves. A law enforcement officer could hide from his neighbors the fact that he is a policeman. His private life could be his own. If a policeman has a family, his occupation will become known in the neighborhood within a few days at the most. If he is single and keeps to himself, he may keep his secret a little longer, but if he is engaged in active law enforcement within his community, it is inevitable that his neighbors will become aware of it. Once he is known, he will become the object of constant observation. Maintain courageous calm in the face of danger, scorn or ridicule, and develop self-restraint. Most officers are prepared to face physical danger and the public expect it. This is due to the fact that when most people think of police work, they think of high-speed chases with guns blazing in similar situations in which the officer's life is constant danger. In a democracy, a police officer is a public officer and as such a servant to the community. Instead of being above reproach or ridicule, he must expect to receive his position as part of his job. It is not easy to control his temper when being subjected to unnecessary, unjustified scorn of ridicule. Whatever I see or hear of confidential nature or that is confided to me in my official capacity will be kept secret unless revelations is necessary in the performance of my duty. Some officers feel that there is difference in that the information obtained by the doctor and attorney is freely given with the understanding that it will be confidential, whereas the information obtained as part of the law enforcement officer can be can be the result of many resources or forms of investigation. I will never permit personal feelings, prejudice, animosities, or friendships to influence my decisions. It is quite difficult to know which desire is strongest in some persons, to help our friends or to hurt our enemies. Both desires both desires are part of our human nature. Helping our friends can be a very good thing in self, but then it involves iniquity in the administration of justice. We are defailing the oath we made the community in which we serve. In police work, there is sample opportunity to both hurt enemies and help friends, and it takes person of strong character to properly perform his duties under these circumstances. Without professional convictions, this can be impossible. I will never act officiously. One of the faults that is common to new officers is that they often act officiously. They appear to the public to be overimpressed with their own importance. In a way, this is natural because it is associated with pride in a new officer. It is usually very proud when he first puts on his uniform and badge. With no compromise for crime and with relentless persecution of criminals, I will enforce the law courteously and appropriately without fear or favor, malice or will. The term with no compromise for crimes means that crime will not be knowing permitted. It does not mean that the officer must perform his duties to the letter of the law without taking it into consideration the spirit of law. No one can predict or guarantee the final results of any ethical. Only God can do this. Man can only be responsible for his immediate actions. If an officer does a good job and the criminal is released by the court, the blame rests not upon him but upon the courts, the jury, or society itself. I will never employ unnecessary force or violence. At times, the use of force in the performance of one's duties is an absolute necessity. There is no escaping it. It is extremely difficult to judge exactly or not. The use of force used in a particular situation was necessary or not. The use of force or violence during interrogation will often produce immediate confessions, but it should be avoided in ethical grounds in that the interrogator seldom knows with complete certainty that suspect is guilty, and the use of force or the third degree on an innocent person is certainly a miscarriage of justice, as well as a violation of professional conduct. I will never accept gratitude. Gratitudes take two main forms. First, this is the gratitude given by a person with the sole intent of receiving something in return. Second, that is given solely by the respect for law enforcement in the job that the police officer are doing. To be truly professional, we must first be ethical. We must do what is actually desirable, not merely what we would like to be desirable. I recognize I recognize the badge of my office as a symbol of public faith, and I accept it as a public trust to be held as long as I am true to the ethics of police service. This is the most overlooked and forgotten phase of law enforcement by the men of the field. It is this that enables an officer to suffer the difficulties and problems that he held at times so frustrating and discouraging. Police officer must understand that he is one of the selected few. Officer should also understand that any personal reward will not be obtained from the public itself, for the public is a difficult master. If there is to be personal reward, it can only come from the job itself or from knowing the significance of the job and the essential role that plays in society. I will not constantly strive to achieve these objectives and ideals dedicating myself before God to my chosen profession, law enforcement. Proficiency in law enforcement involves many factors. It involves mental, moral, and physical conditioning. They are all important aspects. The officer who let himself sleep physically is certainly not able to protect society. The officer who is not good physical condition has more confidence in his ability, and this is sensed by those with whom he deals, and as result he finds that it is necessary to exert authority as much as it might be otherwise. However, knowing and understanding the code of ethics is not enough. It must actually be practiced, it must be lived.